Hey guys, Dakota here, and today I'm here with Mark Harrison. Mark, how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty decent. How about yourself?
I'm doing all right. So, Mark, for those of you that don't know or maybe aren't from the Alberta area, how long have you been arm wrestling for, and what are some accolades of yours?
Accolades. I've been arm wrestling since the late 90s. I think I started, my first tournament was at Village Tree Mall in St. Albert. I believe it was in 1999. Village Tree Mall doesn't even exist in St. Albert anymore. It got bulldozed, but that was back when there used to be like an Alberta circuit tournament. They would go from like St. Albert and Airdrie and Whitecourt and so there'd be these tournaments all throughout the year and basically the same spots all the time. And yeah, so I entered the Village Tree tournament because I was really good at arm wrestling in high school. And I took 2 seconds and I never lost before and it really pissed me off. And and Kathy said, "Hey, you seem like you're good. Why don't you come join the club?" And the Klansman was where we still practice now. And I mean, Kathy is this omnipresent figure within Alberta and Canadian arm wrestling that doesn't age mysteriously. I mean, she's like literally always been the exact same human being. It's crazy. It's like a vampire of some sort. And yeah, so I started going to the club in '99, and yeah, back then like Tony was still active, and Ron Hyatt, and out of that club Dave Hicks was out of there as well, and there's a long storied list of national and world champions that have been out of there, but
Yeah, for sure.
yeah, and I mean we're still there, still going strong. In terms of my accolades, I mean I don't know if you call them accolades, but um, I've won provincials. I don't know. I to be honest, I've never really counted. Um, 10 plus times. Whenever I competed, basically my first provincial titles I think were in 2001. So I'd kind of been into the sport in a significant way, at least for me. Uh, for a couple of years by then, and my first national title was 2004. And I took a bunch of, I've taken a bunch of, maybe like 8 or 9 second places at nationals. Like I've lost to Devin and like Tyrell, and I had some battles and stuff, and I fouled out a lot. Because I'm a speed puller for the most part. Generally, do a little bit better um, in a tournament scenario. Because when I started, super matches didn't exist, right? So like it was, I was in the sport for probably 15 years before super matches became a thing. And but yeah, like I've won a few nationals, and I've come second, probably more than I'd like to recognize. But yeah, so I've been around for a while.
No, that's awesome. I mean, yeah, I think that's especially for anyone in Alberta will definitely know who you are and just those accolades for sure because you really were running through everybody at provincials for quite a while and
Yeah.
nationals you were always there. And then you kind of took I don't know if I want to say time off because I see you at practice here and there. You're just kind of you're
Yeah.
in and out a little bit, but you're always so strong when you come back. And I mean,
Yeah.
you're just one of those names. Like even at the border rivals when you came there, you come, you do your commentating, you get on the table and you're gripping up with guys like Sean and you're right there with them, and it's cool to see because it really shows I think the time and effort that you've put in previously, and just shows like
Right.
it's almost
Well,
like riding a
that's
bike in some
yeah.
ways.
That
You
well,
might
that's the thing, right? I mean, like arm wrestling is an old man sport, right? We all know it, right? A lot of it has to do with your bone density and the connectivity. And if you've been doing it for as long as I have, so I have some hiatuses or whatever. Life gets in the way sometimes, or like my last, I I pulled 2 years ago. I pulled against Travis at Border Rivals 2 years ago, with a super match in the right and the left. And I was feeling really, really good then. I was kind of committed to training. Everything's good. I felt really strong. It was probably the heaviest I've ever been. I was probably kissing 250 around there, 245, 250, which is heavier than I've been. Like I have a national title at 90. I have a national title at 100. Now that I'm old and a little bit fatter, the next thing will be 242s. And like I remember like Earl Wilson, like he has national titles at 100K and then 110 and then 242s, right? So I mean, it's kind of the way it goes for us older. Like you're young and sinewy and svelte, right? So you're
Yeah.
by the time you're 45 years old, if they keep up with it, you're going to be competing up in my weight class, right?
Oh, dude, I'm already having a harder time keeping the weight down from when I started. Like, I'm
Yeah.
like, the 198 used to be no problem. Now it's like fighting to get there, and I just know there's gonna come a day when I gotta just be like, all right, I'm just a 220
Well,
guy
that's the
now.
thing.
Like,
It's like, it's like, it's the effort. It's like I can drop the 10 pounds or I can gain 10 pounds and not have to really worry about, you know, the, checking that extra pizza or that extra beer.
yeah, no, I completely agree. And like you said, it's nice to just be able to gain rather than lose, and it's just
Well, that's the
that mental
thing too,
mindset.
right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so like with the new league, I'm like, okay, I'm like, right, like I'm probably about 238 kind of this morning waking up sort of thing. So it's like I have 7 pounds to gain, or well, realistically I could be 250, drop 5 pounds in water weight from a good crap and a little bit of a bath or a hot shower. So it gives a little bit of flexibility in there, but I've arm wrestled, especially like in the old days. I'd enter every single class I could because, I make a trip out to Whitecourt at, zero dark 60 to like in the middle of the morning by myself, go out to Whitecourt. I'm
Yeah.
like, well, I don't care what wins and losses. Like any real arm wrestler knows, like no one's above an ass kick and people lose all the time, right? Like it's like the landscape of it now is so much different for like a casual observer, right? So I was like, okay, I'm a fan of the sport and I'm watching this. I'm like, oh, Ermey's lost. What's he going to do now? I'm like, man, it's like arm wrestlers get to where they are by losing all the time. You go in there and you do your best and you pull up and you pull against monsters and you lose. And, that's how you grow and that's how you get better and that's how your body responds better, right? Like you put yourself in shitty situations and sometimes you surprise yourself and you surprise the other person and you grow and you get better. So, um, yeah, it's nice now. It's like, okay, I have a little bit of playing room to bulk up and maybe lose a little bit of baby fat, and we'll see where we wash out.
Yeah, well, and I think you brought up some good points there because I think one thing that you said is people don't always realize this, and I think there's like a new kind of like stimulus almost where people don't want to lose, or it's
Yeah.
like they're protecting some fragile thing that
Yeah,
they've got in
exactly.
their
Like
mind. Or like,
it's like, oh, it's like Levon's never lost in a super match or whatever. I'm like, that's Levon, right? Like if you want to be competitive at any point, like you get your shit kicked all the time, man. Right? Like
yeah,
even like some days you'll go to practice and you don't have it. And like you'll lose to people you have no right losing to, but like that helps spur on that motivation. Like, okay, I had a bad day. This is let's put the work in and let's get past it.
yeah, I couldn't agree more. And like, arm wrestling is so humbling for that reason because you'll show up to a day and there'll be a guy where you know you could kill him in a super match, and maybe they're just having a good day and you're having a bad day, and they're just running the floor with you, and you're like, okay. But another thing that you said, well, you didn't really say it, but I want to bring it up. It's a good point. I think it's funny because you talk about kind of this. You're in a good spot, I think, because you got a little bit to gain for that 242s for the tough league, but also, as much as I would say people in our kind of local area and people who've been pulling for a long time know you, some of
Yeah.
these new guys don't. And I think
No,
you're in a spot
100%.
where you can just show
100%.
up.
Yeah.
People are like, "Who's this guy?" And
Yeah.
you could just bang smoke them, and they're just like, "Oh!" And you have that like fun little factor, which
Yeah.
is exciting. And you're pulling for the Vancouver Wildcats, so you're
Yeah.
gonna get to arm wrestle a lot of guys that we see quite often, and not be
Oh,
on the
sure.
same
And
team as them.
guys that I've pulled in the past over the, last numerous amount of years, 100%. Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, like anyone that arm wrestles competitively or has been around the sport for a long time, you're going to meet all these people in passing, right? I mean, some of the best memories I have in arm wrestling is every year at nationals you go, and it's like, oh well, I don't see whoever from Nova Scotia other than just here, right? So I got my chance to pull them. So you meet all these people and you forge these friendships and these relationships, even though you're competitors, right? Because you're still competing for national titles together or whatever. But you go, and that's when you get a chance to arm wrestle them. That's like the most beneficial thing is like the more arms you get to yank on, the better you're going to be as a competitor in the sport, right? Because everyone has these idiosyncrasies. Everyone has their own kind of feel and their own stratagem at the table, right? So like that's the real benefit of doing any larger tournaments. Just the more people you can pull with, the better you're going to be, right?
Yeah, no, it's so true. And like you said, like there's the nationals. It's a little different now too, because like you said, kind of back then, you would go to a tournament and you would pull every class you could just because you didn't know what the next tournament was going to be.
Well, yeah, you pull every class you could, and I didn't care about losing. I just wanted to arm wrestle, right?
Yeah,
So it doesn't
exactly.
like it didn't even enter my mind. It's like, well, I'm not going to do this to protect my cachet as an arm wrestler to pull in the super heavies when I was 90 kilos. Is like, no, I just wanted to arm wrestle, right? Like I drove 3 hours in the middle of the morning because I love the sport. So I'm going to pull everyone I can possibly pull, right? And sometimes
Yeah.
you run into Ryan Espy, and sometimes you wipe the class yourself and you do okay. So no, it's the way it is. The wins and losses don't really matter. It's more about progression, right? Just getting better and testing yourself, right? And sometimes you test yourself and you're nowhere near where the other person is. And sometimes you test yourself and it's like I could have won if I did something different. Or sometimes you test yourself and you're better, right? It's a pretty rich tapestry in terms of how you're garnering experience,
Yeah.
right?
No, that is so true. Speaking of the tough league and all this, as we're on it, have you arm wrestled on the table yet? Have you came to the
Yeah,
Edmonton Club and
yeah,
tried it?
yeah. We have one in Edmonton. I even have where is it? I thought I brought it down. Anyway, Ian Carnegie sent me a pad. Basically, it just
Okay.
adapts. It adapts my internal. Here it is. Adapts my table to it. Basically, you know. So
Okay.
like I
Yeah.
have I have a standard, just an Ezreal table. Um, but basically it fits on here, and then I can get the practice and the training uh, at home when I'm doing my pulleys and pulleys and
Nice.
bands and all that kind of shit. So yeah, it's cool. It's different. It has its benefits and its detractions depending on how you arm wrestle stylistically, right? We touched on it a little bit earlier when I was talking about my plethora of um, silver medals at nationals, sort of thing, and like I've smoked dudes and just fouled out coming off the back of the pad. Right, probably 3 or 4 of those silvers. If I had that pad orientation, I'd be fine, right? Because it kind of goes all the way to the back, right? Because it's a big lat speed move over, um, but it also has benefits for hookers, especially defensive hookers, because you can drive so much further forward, but you need to have that wrist purchase, as Travis would say, in order to be able to slow it down at the end, right? So, I mean, it has its benefits stylistically for someone like me, but it also has benefits for someone's style that could counter mine. So, I
Yeah.
mean, yeah,
That makes sense because I mean I was pulling with the Leach brothers on it, and like I think they're a good example of kind of what you're talking about. Because the way they kind of like to curl in there and get that stop, or even are okay with pulling without their wrist, they
right,
have so much room to come forward or backwards to kind of cut off your arm angle and catch you. But like you
exactly.
said, it's interesting because you also have that extra real estate where if you kind of beat them there, you have
Yeah,
more
well, that's
room
the
to
thing,
run
but you
back.
have to catch it, right? And if you can't catch it, if you're extended so far out where you can't get that stop because you don't have enough updrive on it, then you could be in trouble, right? But over
Yeah.
the duration of, I mean, Mac has several tournaments and everything else. So, I mean, if it's a super match, it could be different. If it's just if it's um, a grouping, uh, then it could be a little bit like a team effort. Then the stratagems are different.
Yeah. No, that's true. I think one thing that's interesting, the biggest thing for me pulling on it, because I pulled on one, but not like this version. I've trained on this one quite a bit. But you can have your elbow at like the back right corner of the pad, and you can like press down to pin somebody, and you're like basically pinning them at the front left corner of the pad.
Yeah,
Like center pins, if done properly, you can really maneuver a downward
exactly,
pressure
and
that you.
that changes that force vector completely from what everyone is used to, right? Like there's a lot of advantageous, and I mean, I still think that there's a lot for people to explore with the setup that hasn't really been explored before because of it. So you're going to
Yeah.
see some arm wrestling that's different than people are accustomed to, for sure.
Yeah. And I mean, aside from the table, what do you think of the whole team aspect where you have, you're maybe not up there pulling all the time? It's kind of like a tournament. You pull and then you rest, but at the same time, there's a few other guys you have to worry about in your class. And then other than that, you might get to pull up a class or get challenged by someone a little bit lower than you. How
Right.
do you feel?
I think it's wonderful for the sport because it's kind of breaking the boundaries down because arm wrestling has been so solipsistic, so individual, right? And that's kind of what drew me to it before. But I play team sports in other sports all the time where you're reliant on the team and you're reliant on, how the team is going to approach something, right? So it adds a lot of elements to the sport that are very new. And I'm really interested to see how that evolution occurs because it's one thing to hypothesize about it and like have the theoretical like, oh, okay, well, we could do this, but when we actually have a league based on that team aspect of it, you get to see in real time kind of the manipulation and what you can do, as the manager, as Marlon, as whoever, Jason, you know can kind of figure out how to manipulate everything to the benefit of the team. And like most team sports, or all team sports really, is the support and the strength that you get from having numerous people behind you, you know, speaking up and getting you in the game effectively, right?
Yeah.
So
No,
I mean,
for
like
sure.
and that's nothing to be trifled with, right? Like I played hockey, I played high level rugby, I played like numerous team sports, but man, like sometimes if you're down and like everyone's in your corner talking you up, giving you advice, and telling you how to approach things, because sometimes when you're at the table, it's easy to feel lost if you're like, that avenue didn't feel good, and it's like I'm not sure what to do. But then you have everyone else in your corner. It can really change the dynamic of how the sport works, right? And I think there's nothing wrong with that. I think it'll be entertaining. It'll be I think it's a nice little evolutionary subsect of the sport.
Yeah, I do agree. And I think, you've nailed a point, like how you're talking with the Mac table, where people are going to have lots of room to explore the setup eventually. I
Right.
actually think that as time progresses and this league develops, you're going to notice people are going to slowly want to work and develop certain things.
Right.
Um, like not only with the setup, but just with the team aspect. Like they could add like substitutions to a level where you grip up with someone, you feel uncomfortable. Each team has a chance to like, call a timeout, call in somebody else as a substitution. Like there's a lot of rules you can do when you start getting to team
Oh
stuff
yeah.
that you can't really do with like an individualistic thing. And it'll see what they kind of decide to develop that makes it more TV friendly because I know that's kind of the direction they're going in.
Well, sure, that's exactly it. Yeah.
So yeah,
Well, yeah.
it's going to be interesting, like especially that they have the deal with Fight TV and everything. I think that's a really good step for them. I saw Fight TV posted on their Instagram like a
Okay.
part of the first rundown of it, and I mean, we've all seen WAL. I personally loved the direction WAL went, and I think if Tough could get kind of in that same realm where it's like an ESPN or a TSN is wanting to do things and work on it,
Right.
that all of a sudden jumps up their like what's their value. Their value goes up like crazy because the athletes like the athletes that are on the show right now, getting all that like people seeing them, that exposure,
Right.
it goes a long ways, and I think it's exciting that they're like on the cusp of it. I know Jason's going on Shark Tank to promote the league with
Yeah,
like
yeah, exactly. Yeah, he just told us that. I'm like, that's awesome, right? And
yeah.
the beauty of it is, you know, it's a great sport to watch. Um, like it's very simple in how it works, right? There's a definitive winner and there's a loser, and like a common person that does no experience watching the sport can understand how it works, right? And because of the advent and the success of one-on-one combat sports, right? Like it's very visceral. It's very like there's been no one that hasn't arm wrestled. Like little kids arm wrestle. Every person is arm wrestled, right? So you understand it like automatically, right? Um, so taking advantage of that and the benefit of it is a really smart play. Um, and yeah, Jason going on Shark Tank is awesome. Um, Go ahead.
Yeah, it's a super cool thing, and because if he presents that properly and he manages to get an investor who's interested to put in a good margin of money for some percentage of the company, like you can see a lot of things happen when a little bit of coin gets involved, right? Like
Oh
you've
yeah,
seen it with
exactly.
many.
It doesn't even take that much, right? It's not like he's asking for $10 million for 10% of his company or anything like that, right? But a little bit of coin actually goes a really really long way in this sport. And for the most part,
100%.
it's like, yeah, it's like all the athletes, especially the pro guys and the top guys, like the Mats and the Ermies or whatever, they want to get paid because they dedicated their lives to the sport, and that's good. They should get paid, right? Just like any other professional athlete. But you know, everyone wants to see the sport succeed that has been entrenched in the sport in a long time, right? Like, it's like I'm not looking to make money on competing because I competed for nothing, right? Like competed for
Yeah.
peanuts, like the Simpsons did
Yeah.
a thing where it's like entry fee $50, first place $50 sort of thing, right? Like that's not why we do it, right? It'd be nice if we made something, but like we want the sport to grow. We want it to get better. We want more eyes on it because it's a legitimate strength sport and it's awesome.
Yeah. And like you said, I mean, we do it for peanuts, and I think it's funny because I think we all have like the same mindset in a way. We're like investing in it. We're like, you know what,
Yeah.
we'll put the money in now, and maybe in the future, if we get good enough or if the sport gets big enough, that money can come back and find us somehow. And I think that's something that is great about the arm wrestling community. And like you said, with going to a nationals or just you see these people, you meet them, and they're all great people for the
Yeah.
most part. And you're just excited to, have a beer, whatever it is with them, and just go on.
Yeah.
But I did want
Because
to
they're doing
segue.
the
You
same
did,
thing you are, 3,000 kilometers away. right? They love the sport the same you do, and they've been doing it their whole lives the same way that you are. Right? It's a kindred spirit sort of relationship with these people that are that you see once a year, once every 2 years, but it always equates to a lot when you see each other.
Yeah, 100%. And one thing I find interesting that you said when you talked about the pros, you talked about Matt Mask, of course. And I
Yeah.
did want to talk to you about him just because I feel like you have a different dynamic than the people I talk to. I think a lot of people I talk to are like don't really know him that well, or else they train with him lots. But you've had the experience of actually, kind of seeing his journey. And
Right.
just from what you've seen, like just I don't know, give us a fun story or something, or tell us about when you've pulled him personally, just from a long time ago to now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like he's always, and I think even Devin said it, like he has this natural disposition towards the sport, almost like a Michael Phelps in swimming, right? And because he lived out east for a while, and he came here, and then he came back, and I think I was there for his first. It was in Short Park actually, his first tournament back, and since he moved back, and yeah, just he has all those physical attributes that someone like me or you don't have, right? Like just this colossal hand, and he's got this really long lever, and he's got fast twitch muscle out of his ass, right? So fast. And so when he kind of came here, and he was in the same weight class as me, he was like new kid on the block, even though he wasn't really new to the sport. But I kind of had the stranglehold on like 100 kilogram puller in Alberta, and he just fucking smokes me, man. I was like, what the hell, right? Because like usually I'll pull outside all the time because it's a tournament and is less wear and tear, right? It's just a smarter way of pulling, right? I'm probably stronger inside than I am outside, but if I can win outside, I'm going to win outside. That's just the way it is. And because his hand is so big and like this is so long, it was really difficult to be able to blade in or even just wrist flexion in to achieve any sort of purchase on it to do anything. And he's so fast that by the time you do it, you're down here, right? And
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my god! And it was, it was frustrating for me because he's almost like my kryptonite stylistically, right? It's like, okay, any kind of middle arm, whatever, it's fine. I have really strong wrist and a strong hand. And I kind of focus on that a lot because I don't have certain physiological attributes that would lend itself to being like, this elite arm. Okay, so if I don't have those, I need to be stronger than everyone else, right? So I focus on hand strength a lot, and it, yeah, like man, he just kept fucking spanking me because speed was my thing, and he was just as fast, if not faster, than I am, right? So like I didn't get the jump on him that I would get on everyone else, and he just bam, 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 and the left was a little bit of a different story, where I probably I'd more success than he had against me in the left. I mean, obviously not anymore, but for the first long while, like I beat him in the right a couple times, and this we're talking ages ago, right? So it's not really relevant to where he's at now. But
Yeah.
yeah, stylistically, he's a very difficult person for me to arm wrestle successfully. Like I've arm wrestled people stronger than him, like practice and whatever else. Like if we got into certain positions, I'm like, okay, this is fine. But getting to those positions is the real trick, right? Like, I mean, just anyone can say that about anything, right? It's like, oh, I'm a really good top roller, but if you suck me inside, then I'm not good. Well, getting to the position that you need to get into is kind of, part and parcel for the sport. So, but yeah, no, he's always been gifted, and kind of once the WAL hit, he really committed himself to the sport more so, and then started making huge leaps and bounds. And yeah, he's a terrifying prospect for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so when you first gripped up with him and you're like, was that just something where you could just tell? You're like, if this guy like wants it and he really commits himself, like he has all the attributes to be kind of like a freak how he is now.
Yes, yes, I would say so. But also, I mean, there's been a bunch of people, kind of in my, in the 20, not quarter century amount that I've been arm wrestling, where it's like you grew up with them, like, oh my God, man. It's like if you like did a deep dive committed to this completely, like you would be an absolute fucking monster, right? And and it doesn't happen a lot. And I mean, like we're in Canada, we live our lives. It's not professional thing. Like, life gets in the way sometimes and injuries, railroad things and all this kind of stuff happens. But like there's been a few like really, really talented people that, well, they just didn't want to pursue it or they didn't have the drive. Like there's a lot of people that have the elements there, but if you don't have that drive to be the best, and not everyone arm wrestles for the same reason, and that's kind of the one of the reasons I love the sport, right? Like not everyone wants to be on East versus West and be the best and compete against Vitaly Lalitin or whatever, right? Like you can be in the sport and just like I just like arm wrestling, right? And you go to the club once a week and you pull your heart out and you do all that shit and that's awesome, right? Like not everyone's going to be a Matt Mass, not everyone's going to be a Devin or whoever, right? You just go and you arm wrestle. There's camaraderie. You get better. You stay active and physical, right? And that's the really nice part about the sport. Um, but there's also like there's realism involved in terms of like I've met people that wanted to be the best ever, and like just like, man, you could have 1,000 lifetimes and you'd never even grace the elite, right? And it's not their fault, but but they want to, and that's fine. So go for it. See what you can do, man. Right? But I mean, like, there's the consistency and the longevity of the sport are kind of what separate it for strength sports and for most sports in general, right? Like you can I've arm wrestled with people and they arm wrestled for 10 years, man. 10 years, and I didn't see them win a single match in a tournament, but they just kept doing it, kept doing it. And then, like, one day it's like, oh, they won their first match. Then, 20 years in the sport, and they're like, okay, they're like, kind of perennial, provincial kind of, they're in the conversation to win provincial titles. They've been in it for 20 years and they've kept doing it, but that's the beauty of it. Like, you think you could do that in hockey where it's like, I want to be the best, like Happy Gilmore. And you just go out there and you're fucking terrible at hockey all the time and you just stick with it and you're going to be in the NHL? No. But like with arm
Yeah.
wrestling, it's like you can work really hard. And if you do it smart and you stay injury free, like you can be competitive on a national level. There's not a lot of other
Yeah.
sports that you can say that to.
No, that's so true. And like you said, I think staying injury free is important. And I think you're completely right. Like, if, there are some guys who it's tough. Like, you pull them and they're such grit and dedication. And you're just like, man, there are some genetic factors that are not playing
Yeah,
in your
yeah.
favor.
I just wish you had a little bit more of the God-given talent because your drive would, like a Rudy Rudiger, like you would kill if you know, had a 9-inch hand and, whatever else. But they still love it nonetheless.
And like you said, go for it. You know what I mean? Because nothing is better than like, I'm not the kind of guy where I'd ever tell someone you have no chance because I think everyone has a chance. And it's so cool when you see those guys where you're like, oh man, I don't know if they can do it, and then they pull it off
Oh, isn't
because
that the
they
best?
put in that much more
Oh
work.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. It's yeah, they're driving so hard for so long and they find that lane and they win. against someone they have no right beating, and they're just so jacked up. Man, that's so awesome. I love that. I
Yeah.
love that.
And it's funny, you know, you bring up a good point that I think about, but I have never really found a way to word it, and I think you said it quite well. But arm wrestling is like an inclining sport. Like if I go and I show up to practice and I don't overdo it and I constantly train for a long period of time, like you said, over spans of decade, like tens,
Yes.
20s years, you can slowly get better to a point where you're in a contestation of provincials or nationals. If I went and tried out for a football or even a different
Yeah.
individual sport, like even let's say boxing, you know what I mean? Like you have to, it's so different. And that's why arm wrestling is so fun and unique.
It
And I
is.
think that's
Yeah.
something that people really need
Yeah.
to pay more
In
attention.
that it is for sure. And the amount of time that you can compete in the sport is unrivaled, right? Like, yeah, it's hard on our elbows and we get injuries or whatever, but any professional sport is like, oh, you're 29. You're on the downturn of your professional career, right?
Yeah.
Like arm wrestling is like, your peak is, 40-ish if you kind of stick with it and everything else, right? So it's kind of a unicorn in that sense. And the longevity of the sport and like, it's like smoking, you never really give it up, right? Sometimes you have a little hiatus because life gets in the way or whatever, but you always come back. It's,
Yeah.
you know, like even
No,
guys that I arm wrestled with in very early 2000s, like 90s, like Dale Kotek, right? He's like I knew him from way back, and then he was gone for a while, and now he's back, and he's like he rekindles his love, and he's back in the sport, right? So yeah,
yeah.
I think that's one of the most beautiful things about the sport is that you can just keep doing it as long as you enjoy it.
Yeah. And you bring up another good point because I resonate with this well because like I was not a gifted arm wrestler. I was not good. I would when my dad would go and pull because he was quite good and he had a fast hit, you know what I mean? And he was
Yeah,
competitive.
yeah. The old
Like
man's quick.
I would go and pull youth and like, I was usually pulling kids older, bigger than me or whatever, but I would lose. I would go 0 and 2. I would go 0 and 2. And I mean for the first 2 years of youth that I arm wrestled, I'd be lucky to win a match. And you know what I mean? But just kept doing it, plugging away, and then over time it pays off. And you know what I mean? Like I'm thankful for those losses now because I look back at where I was, and I wouldn't be where I am right now if I didn't get my butt kicked every weekend.
Yeah, well, I mean you know that's also a personal choice for you, right? You deciding to come away from the loss with knowledge, right? So like, okay, what did I do wrong technically? What's my acumen? Like, what happened in that caused me to lose? Was it strength? Was it technique? Was it both? Was it whatever? Right. So I mean that aspect of it is on you as an arm wrestler, like what you're going to garner from a loss and from the experience. As we touched on earlier, is like not everyone thinks that way. Not everyone works that way. Some people just go and they get their asses kicked and they're like, I did my best. And then they move on to the next one. And that's okay too. Right. But you know, everyone knows you learn more from a loss than a win, right? You smoke someone in half a second. Well, I had a good hit and then whatever. So, but you lose, you think about it, the certain breed of person that'll dwell on them and they'll think about it, and they'll think about it, and they'll think about it. And, you know, that's how you get better. That's how you improve. It's a personal drive.
Yeah, and that's I think it's another thing is that's what separates some of them guys who are just they like just want to win so bad because they let every little thing about it get to them. They'll lose, they'll think about it, and then they'll win, and then they're not satisfactory with the win, and then you can just
Yeah.
tell it's just and then yeah, I love what though? I think arm wrestling has such a great place for those people as well though, who just show up, drink a bunch of beer, arm wrestle, win a couple matches, lose a couple matches, and
Yeah.
you're like, "Oh, that was the best time ever. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
that's
Because
yeah,
it
it's
brings you
grassroots. Yeah,
it's almost like what I want to say is like it almost brings beer league and like pro and you
yeah,
just kind of mesh it together and then
yeah,
it's that fun aspect of beer league but you have that professional aspect of the pros and everyone's hanging out at the same time. You know what I mean? Like if you go to a, 1A, 2A, 3A hockey, everyone's serious, the parents are serious,
yeah,
everyone's like but then you go to beer league and everyone's probably not as serious as they maybe
yeah.
should
But
be,
they're having way
but
more
they
fun.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Whereas arm wrestling, you can see all walks of the life there, and it's
Oh, yeah,
exciting.
100%. Yeah, that's the beauty of it. It's like, I know lawyers that, there's lawyers that do it, there's doctors that do it, there's everyone that does it. There's you have this common denominator of arm wrestling, you all have a drink afterwards or during, and it's
Yeah,
fantastic.
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and another thing I wanted to talk to you about is just you talked about being very hand strong, and I think that's something that's super important for arm wrestling. What are some things you do to work on hand strength, or that you've kind of adapted over the years?
Um, the nice thing about the landscape of arm wrestling right now is that there's a lot of support for it. And when I say that, I mean like, it's like, okay, I have, like this tool where, okay, I can work on the distal part of my fingers when I'm doing my wrist flexion. I can, I have a, whatever, a rolling thing like this and do whatever. That stuff didn't exist before. I used to make it for myself. Like I'd take a boat roller and I'd put a rod through it and I'd weld a handle and I'd do all that stuff in the past. Now you can just go on Amazon and buy the fucking thing, which is awesome, right? Um, but I used to focus a lot on, well, I was. It doesn't really translate over, but it was more of a point of pride when I started kind of my arm wrestling journey as the captains of Crush Grippers. Those are fine. They don't really not a huge correlation because your kind of wrist is back a little bit like this when you're doing it, but it's more the supporting strength, the sweep of the close, right? So like, okay, I have containment. I do one-handed deadlifts with a thick handle, so like a rolling thunder, something like that. I found success with like one-handed cleans.
Oh,
Basically, I'll have a thick handle. So like I say, I have like this, and then I'll take like a thick handle, and it'll go on the thing, whatever, and then I'll do a clean bang up to my chest and then down. So it's just the shock, the initial hit, right, where it's attacking my fingertips. Um,
yeah.
is a main thing. Um, I do a lot of the same kind of pronation shit everyone does. I don't spend a lot of time doing like the Devon open-handed lifts because that's not how I
Yeah.
arm wrestle, and like everyone for some reason thinks that that's how you do pronation, but it's not. Like you do it on a table, and you do it in where you're actually going to be doing the actual arm
Doing it.
wrestling.
Yeah.
You're not sitting there with your arm out like this trying to lift a thing up. It's like if you don't arm wrestle like that, then what the fuck is the point? Who gives a shit?
Yeah.
So, um, but yeah, thick handled work. I'll do pinch grip stuff. Um, I have like a little pinch, like an Iron Mine pinch grip thing, whatever, like that thing, and then actual pinch
Okay.
grips with plates.
Yep.
Um, it's not a lot of dissimilar stuff from kind of what everyone else does for the most part, but I focus on. I'll rotate like a hand and wrist day and then a body day. So I do shoulders and then I'm going to focus on hand and wrist because you can train them more often than you can the rest of your muscles, at least in my experience. So I focus on that sort of stuff. Um, yeah, yeah. I mean, it's relatively normal arm wrestling gym that I have, I think, compared to most people's. And I don't have the big Michael Todd wagon wheel side pressure machine that he has and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
yeah, a lot of it's just bare bones basic thick handle, pinching, lifting, shit like that.
Well, it seems to be working for you, and I do notice one thing. You're such a speed hitter, and like you said, you like to be fast, and the way you kind of hit. I notice all your kind of lifts you talked about, even that power clean and stuff. They work your containment, like your wrist containment, as well as just getting that sweeping top roll. So I feel like you're
Right.
trying to get that speed move without losing anything on the hit.
Well, that's the thing. Like a speed move is useless if you don't have containment, right? So if I
Hmm.
if I'm hitting here and someone is trying to out top roll me, if I don't have the supporting strength and I don't have the ability to cup a little bit, then that speed is gone, right? The speed has to come from having some hand control, right? And like my hand, like I have a wide palm. I have these little Filipino fingers, which aren't super long. Like they're, like Matt's are like out here, and I got these little rinky-dink things. So in order for me to be effective, they have to be stronger in terms of being able to have that supporting strength. So that's kind of what my focus is because I also, I know better than anyone what my weaknesses are. So um, yeah, that's a lot of times that's what I'm focusing on is containment and then speed to either roll around or go through to put in a position where the other person can't utilize their strengths.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great setup. And we talked about this earlier. We didn't really touch on it, but staying injury free. Have you had a lot of injuries throughout your career, and how do you kind of manage them?
Yeah, yeah, I have, and that's the harder thing about kind of getting back into it now and like on a high level that I have to really be cognizant of. um, because like the mind still thinks that I'm your age, right? Where I'm like, fuck, I just fucking go. I want to go. Like everything feels good, but I have to take the requisite rest times off, right? So a lot of times I'm like, okay, I feel a tweak. I need to like just chill out a little bit. I'll just do high rep, a little bit of blood flow. I'm gonna, I have my rice bucket like, everyone does just to get a little bit of a pump and get the blood flow in there. But I mean, it's cliche, but you listen to your body. You listen to what what is good, what's not. Sometimes you can try to push a little bit through something, and then if it's a no go, then it's a no go, right? Give yourself time. It's better if I take 3 days off of doing something to let, whatever kind of work itself out, than push through and hurt myself and then negate the last 6 weeks of training that I've done, right? So the main thing for me, and I can't speak for everyone because I can just speak for me and in my experience, is just patience, right? I listen to the body, like, okay, I can push as hard as I can push. If anything feels off, then I'll take a little bit of a hiatus back because if you push too hard and you end up fucking something up, it can be very detrimental, especially in this sport, right? Like when I was young and I was arm wrestling Tony Singer, and I mean, I don't know if you know him that well, but he has a super awkward, very open style. And you think you're in
Yeah,
a good
yeah,
position. It's almost like Michael Todd. You think you're in a good position. You're like, okay, I'm good because we're like an inch off of the pin pad, and it's like
yeah.
an iron. You're like, what the fuck? So it's like I hit and I hit and I hit, and we're just in practice. And wham again, and I felt it pop, and like I couldn't pull inside for a year and a half. So like that's where I developed my top roll because I couldn't pull inside, so I had to pull outside only. right? And then I
Yeah.
forgot how to hook after that because I was so adverse to going inside because it hurt so bad. So I had to relearn how to hook. And like injury. It's a tricky thing. Injuries are one of the hardest things to contend with in the sport because, yeah, like I said, you negate all of this training, all of this work, the hours and the hours and the hours that you put in sculpting and cultivating like these little tiny motions where it's like the only thing I'm training is this, right? It's like I'm sitting here doing this kind of shit for, you look like an insane person in a gym, right? We're just sitting there, and they're like, what the fuck's wrong with this guy? And
I know, yeah.
right, yeah, exactly, yeah. And then, so when you're doing that, like relentlessly over and over and over, and then as soon as you fucking hurt something, all of it's gone. All of it's gone. So, I mean, I take a more cautious approach to it now, having hurt myself a whole bunch and being an old shit myself, where it's like staying healthy and consistent, even if it's light and just doing a little bit is more beneficial than going crazy heavy and hurting myself, right? Because this, like, when I'm training with weights and whatever else, that's not arm wrestling. That's just very specific motions that I'm working on when I'm at the table, right? And a lot of people now that are new in the sport, they don't really understand that like all these little lifts and whatever else, they're just to complement the table time, right? Like it's like, okay, you're doing this, you're doing this. That's great. Like how often are you in this lane specifically on an actual arm wrestling table? The second anything happens, you're going to be here, and what you've done here doesn't mean anything over here. So, right? It's like, it's like, okay, I'm a pro. I've been doing this a long time. I'm working on this one specific motion because I know that this is a weakness or this is what I need to work on, right? Like at the table in the practice, I'm gaining all of this strength everywhere else, but because it's just like Arnold, where he's like, oh, I need a little more delt, I need a little more whatever, and then he works that a little bit harder. That's how arm wrestling training, I think, should be. Is you spend all your time in the table, and if you have a deficiency, you train that one deficiency to kind of elevate up where you can have more options at the table.
Yeah.
So
No, that's a really good theory. Like you said, you accent the table time with getting stronger in your deficient areas. Like obviously, if you're getting rolled open every time you arm wrestle somebody on the table, that
yeah,
should tell you that you need stronger
work on
cup,
your
and
cup.
then you
Yeah, yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
No, that's a very good way to put it. I mean, yeah, I got one more question for you, and then we
Sure.
can start wrapping up. But so I want you to think back to when you first started arm wrestling. Like you said, you went to that first tournament, you got second place. As you went on throughout the years, how did you develop your style? How did you understand what worked for you and what didn't, and kind of figure out just kind of where you knew you were good or how you knew you were fast, whatever it may be?
That's a good question, actually. And it's an interesting story, I think. So I had a natural disposition to where I was just a strong kid, right? So like, okay, I was good at hooking, and then top rolling is a really foreign motion for most people. Like, what are you drinking tea, but you're doing that. So I went to the club and whatever else, and I learned the basics like everyone does. And then my first nationals was in 2001, and I took a I took silver all the time. Anyway, in the that novice back then, I think it was amateur novice category or whatever. But I watched because I was like I breathed the sport then. Like I had VHS tapes from all the previous nationals, and I'm watching like Miles Volko and Dave Hicks and all these guys arm wrestle. I watch it religiously, and I watch these things while I was training and stuff. And I watched Devin and Luke Reimer battle it out in the 100 kilogram class, and Devin won the right, took second in the left. Luke won the left, took second in the right. And I was like, oh my God, these guys, I mean, they were like such a cut above everyone else. Like Cory Bucco was in that class, and Chris Madonna, and Todd Lambies, and but like these Luke and Devin just mutilated them, right? It wasn't even comparable. So, after the tournament, whatever, kind of, talked to them. I was this starry-eyed kid, new in the sport relatively, talking to him about technique and whatever else. And so like Luke and I became friends, and he lived in Williams Lake. I don't know where he lives now.
Okay.
But sorry? Yeah.
I just said, oh, okay, it's funny. I go golf with some of my buddies in Williams Lake. They actually live out
Okay.
there. Yeah.
Yeah. So like we kind of like basically kind of became pen pals, but we just talked arm wrestling, right? And in order to talk arm wrestling, like you need to know the terminology. And this is 2001, right? So it wasn't as common. It's like, okay, pronate, supinate, or whatever, but like we would have to have a vernacular in order to describe what we're talking about on the table, right? It's okay. So you're like ulnar deviation, ulnar radiation. You're talking about all these things that are almost common knowledge now, or common diction. And Gord Squire put on a tournament in Calgary with it was Alan and Carolyn Fisher came up, and John Brzenk came up, and they did like a little thing, and Luke was like, he was big and he was strong, and he's like we basically kind of attacked how he's going to beat John Brzenk, right? And it's like, okay, if he does this, you have to do this and whatever else. And so we would have these emails, these pages of emails, just talking technicalities of just the most subtle nuances of hand position, wrist position, where to attack, everything else. And because like Luke's a very, very smart guy, and and we did this for 6 months, where we just talk arm wrestling specifics, and it kind of made up our own language that we understood, on the whole. And that made a big impact on me as an arm wrestler, because it forced me to think about the subtlety, the nuance, the technical aspect of why a move works the way it does. Like it's like, okay, well, you slide your elbow up and you pronate and you do this, right? It's like everyone knows the basics, but there's an underlying aspect to it where it's like, why is this working? Why, when you are supinated with distal attack, why does your arm go down, right? So there's an understanding of kind of the rudiments of the sport. And so in talking with Luke in that technical way for so long, that really helped form my style. Like I had, I'm strong, whatever. Like everyone's strong, in this realm. But that helped me to be able to attack and know why I'm attacking, where I'm attacking when I'm doing my hits. Because like, yeah, I have fast twitch muscles. I have a good hit, but a good hit doesn't mean much unless you're attacking where you want to attack, where it is down to a pinpoint, right? A lot of amateur arm wrestlers, I'm feeling like, man, you got a lot of power, everything's really good, but it's generalized, right? Like you're just kind of strong here. It's like, no, you need a specific place where you're attacking, right? And like, I
Yes.
mean, you felt it, right? Like you need to have a goal in mind. Okay, like the move is going to be this. I'm attacking this for this reason, to open you up to do this, right? So that's kind of how it came. And actually, to kind of go back on my Luke story, yeah, he went up there, and first match in the right against John Brzenk, low hand top roll, flattened him out, and I was like, oh my god, right? It was so good. He fucking beat John's right, and I was like, oh my god. And I was in that class, so and then I went against Aaron Langell, and he beat me. I was still young in this sport, so I met John Brzenk on the B side, which is a whatever I was, 19, 20-year-old kid. I have a video of it.
Oh,
I'm just smiling like a moron. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then Luke beat him on the left, so they met in the right. On his left is not as a shadow of his right, obviously, but Luke put him to the B side in the right, and then they met in the left, and then Luke walloped him in the left, and then John came back and his right hand, obviously, it's John Brzenk. He messed him up. Yeah, so it was a good tournament.
no, that sounds like an awesome tournament. And yeah, no, Mark, we're at the hour point here, but I just wanted to
Yeah,
say like thank
all
you for
good.
coming on. Great conversation,
Hey, thanks for having
and
me.
I'm excited to see you in the Tough League. I'm excited to see you at the Edmonton Club to practice. And I have a strong feeling that if you want to stay with it and when people start seeing you in Tough, you're going to get some calls for some opportunities.
Yeah, hopefully so. I mean, I've been doing it a long time. I just do it for the love of the sport. It's fun. I love meeting everyone like yourself. I mean, I grew up with your dad in the sport and, met you in it. And, it's a beautiful time in the sport. It's a beautiful time to be an arm wrestler. And, you just want to share it with the world. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Yeah. But yeah, guys, make sure you go check Mark out. And he's going to be competing for the Vancouver Wildcats throughout the Tough season. And it's going to be a great time. So make sure you like, subscribe, tell a friend. And I hope you guys enjoyed this video.
All right.